Hi guys, in this video I'm going to go over the OR function. Before we do that, go to excelvbasequel.com. You can watch over 26 hours of free video lessons that teach you everything you need to know about Excel from the very beginner stages to the advanced stages. So put your email in here and you could receive emails when new videos go up. Okay, so let's get started. So in previous videos, we looked at logical functions, and we worked with the if function. We did a nested if function. We did a simple if function, and then we did an AND function, and an AND function with multiple criteria with an if statement around it. And the data we're using, remember, is just data on people, their addresses, their city, states, their favorite colors and salaries and their phone numbers and email. So we're using just some dummy data, and we're working our way through these logical functions. So the next function we're going to look at is the OR function. So if you go up here to the Formula tab and you go down to this logical, this little icon, this book icon with logical under it, and you go down to OR, we can take a look at what the OR function does. And it's going to be pretty similar and pretty easy. It's very similar to what we saw with the AND function. Again, we see it asks us to put in as arguments some logical tests or conditions. And down here in the description it says checks whether any of the arguments are true and returns true or false. So this OR function, it's only going to return true or false, just like the AND function. So the AND function and the OR function, both of them only return true or false. The OR function here, it says it returns false only if all the arguments are false. So I think an easier way to understand that, they also could have said that it returns true if any of the arguments are true. That's really how I think about it. If any of the arguments that you put here are true, it's going to return true. So only one of those arguments need to be true, and it'll return true. Else, if all of them are false, it's going to return false. So an easier way to look at this is, let's do some examples here. So remember also what it said. It said you can put in 1 to 255 conditions. So here I'm going to put a simple OR function. And here I'll just write that again, simple OR. Okay, so now let's do a simple OR. So if we do just this, if we do equals OR, so we have to put the name of the function, and then here it asks us for a logical argument or a condition that we want to test. So I'm going to put 1 is equal to 1. So if I do, well, no, let me start off more generically. If I just do this, equals OR true, what's that going to return? Well, it's going to return true. Why? Because it looks at what you put in between parentheses, and it says, does that return true? It does. Does at least one of the things you passed in return true? And I only passed in one thing, and it does return true, because true, if I write true, that returns true. Okay, so this is going to return true because what is in parentheses is true. Now what if I do this? OR true, comma, false. Well, that also returns true. Why does that return true? Because only one of these things needs to be true, and here it is. This one is true. If I put false here, now what is this going to return? What's going to show up in that cell? Well, false is going to show up in the cell because there's nothing here that returns true. In order for this OR function to return true, one of these arguments or these logical tests has to be true. So if I hit enter, it shows false. So let's do a better example maybe. What if I had the logical condition that 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, and I had the logical condition, so I put a comma, so I do another logical condition, 2 plus 2 is equal to 5. Okay, so what is going to be result that is in that cell when I hit enter. Remember, when you use the OR function, you think of it like this. It's going to return true if either this is true or this is true. And this certainly is true. 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. So you could stop there. This is going to return true. You don't need to go on any further because you know you only need one of them to be true for this function to return true. So if I hit enter, it certainly does return true. If I make this 1 plus 1 is equal to 7, which is false, so for this to return true, this needs to be true or this needs to be true. And they're both not true. So this is false and this is false. So it's going to return false. And as we see, it does return false. Now, if I leave 1 plus 1 is equal to 7, and then I change this, 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, well, this is true here. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. And only one of them needs to be true. So this is going to return true because 1 plus 1 needs to be true. 1 plus 1 equals 7 needs to be true, or 2 plus 2 equals 4 needs to be true. This one is true, so if I hit enter, I'm going to get true. And you could do this for 255 more conditions. So you could put 5 is greater than 4. Is that true? Yes, that's true. So if you hit enter, this is going to be true because this is true and this is true and this is false. So only one of them needs to be true. So now you have 2 that are true. So that's sort of more than you need, because if I change this to 2 plus 2 is equal to 1, now I only have one thing that's true. It's still going to return true because you only need one argument to return true, one of these logical conditions. And remember, these logical, what you see, logical 1, logical 2, these are statements that have to return true or false. Okay, let's just write in 5 here. Well, 5 returns true because I guess they treat that as a true value. But if you write the word ed, you get a pound value error because these things need to be treated as true or false. So you can play around with these inputs, but basically what you're going to be doing, when you're working in Excel, is putting in arguments that return true or false. So let's do that now. So I'm just going to put this back. 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. And if I hit enter, I get true. Okay, so let me just autofill this down. Okay, so that's a very generic way of trying to understand the OR function. Remember, big picture, what do you need to know? You need to know that only one of these logical statements needs to be true. It only checks for one, as opposed to the AND statement where all of them need to be true. So when we dealt with this AND statement, all of these things needed to be true. The logical, all of them need to be true. Whereas when you deal with the OR statement, only one of them needs to be true. Okay, so let's do a real world example. Let's look at people who live in South Dakota, Oregon, Washington. Let's do that first. So we want to find people that are, South Dakota, Oregon, let's find people that live in South Dakota or they work for Microsoft. So here I'll put OR. So this is a real world example of how you would use the OR function. So what we would do is go like this, equals, so let me find the state column here. So I have this data and it has a state column. here's a column D that has states of where do these people live. So I want or a D4 is equal to SD. I want that to be true, or I want them to work for Microsoft. And I don't know why. It could be for some reason I want to find those people. Okay, so this OR function is going to return true or false. Remember, the OR function and the AND function, both of them only return true or false. And the arguments evaluate to true or false. And for the OR function, only one of them needs to be true. So if I hit enter, let's take a look at what we get. Let me hide some columns here so we can get a better picture. So if I hide these columns, and also let me hide these columns. So here we see this evaluated to false. Why did this evaluate to false? Well, because this person doesn't live in South Dakota, nor do they work for Microsoft. They work for Apple. So let me copy this down. I'm going to double click this by using the autofill and looking for some trues here. So here's a true. This person lives in South Dakota. So that falls into what we want. And this person lives in South Dakota. This person, they live in Florida, but they work for Microsoft. So that's what the OR does. It's saying, you don't have to live in South Dakota and work for Microsoft. You can work in South Dakota or work for Microsoft. Only one of them needs to be true. In this case, the Microsoft is true. In this case, the state is true. They live in South Dakota. They don't work for Microsoft. Let's keep looking at a few more. Here's another true one. So this person, in cell P31, you see Microsoft. So they work at Microsoft, and they live in Oklahoma. But because it's an OR function, only one of them needs to be true, and it'll return true. All the other ones are false because they're all false. Both of the arguments are false. So we could put more arguments in here. Let's see. Let's say we want to find people that work for Microsoft, or they live in South Dakota, or their first name let me escape. Or their first name is David. So I'll put comma, and I'll do A4 is equal to David. Or their first name is Armando. So now we're just expanding the people that we want to find. And if we hit enter, let's do autofill again. Remember, you need to hit autofill to make the formula go down the column again, or else it won't update the whole column. So now let's see what we find. Here's a true right here. So this person works for Adobe. They live in South Dakota, and their name is Gannon. This is another true. Oh, so why is this true? Well, this is true because they work in South Dakota. This one is true. Now, why is this true? Well, Armando actually does work for Microsoft, but he lives in Florida. But because, here's an interesting case. Now, so this is true for this guy. His name is Armando, and he works for Microsoft. So you have two things that are true. This is false. He doesn't live in South Dakota. And this is false. His name isn't David. So the OR function looks at all of these things. It evaluates them individually. So you could use... oops, I put the wrong cell reference in here. This should be A4. Because everything is in the fourth row, so I need that to be A4. Let me scroll down. So in this case, still we have Armando works at Microsoft. This is false, and then you have two things that are true. He works at Microsoft, and his name is Armando. And this value returns true because Remember, only one of them need to be true for this OR function. So let's find some more here. Here's another one. This person lives in South Dakota. None of the other things are true. His name isn't Armando. But since one of them is true, this returns true. All these false ones, if we look at one false, everything is false. His name's not Armando. His name's not David. He doesn't live in South Dakota. He doesn't work for Microsoft. So they all have to be false to return false. Let's find another one here. Here's a true. In this case, this person is named Austin. They live in Oklahoma. So they don't fall into any of these categories until you look at this Microsoft. So they work for Microsoft. So that's the only thing that's true. So that's going to return true. Okay, so I think you get it. I think you understand what the OR function does. Now, again, as we saw before over here, let me unhide this. How you really would use this in the real world is similar to what we saw with the AND function. You would wrap an if statement around the logical function, and then you could write stuff. Or not, you not necessarily write stuff, but you could do anything you want. You could do a calculation here. So if this AND function evaluates to true, I can write something in the cell, or I can do a calculation, or I can do another if statement, whatever. But that's what you would do in the real world when you're working on your job. You would wrap it in an if statement. So let's do that here. So I have this column here that identifies people that live in South Dakota, work for Microsoft, or live in South Dakota, or work for Microsoft, or their name is Armando, or their name is David. I want to put an if statement around this, and let's say that we want these people, if they fall into any of those categories, to be in a lottery for whatever reason. Or no, let's say we need to send them an email. Okay, so I can put an if statement around this or, and I can do a comma. And if that's true, if they are one of these people that I want to send an email, I can write send email. If it's false, if they're not any of these people, then I'm just going to write nothing. I'm just going to put 2 quotation marks, open and closed, and that'll return nothing in the cell. So here is my final formula. I have an if statement, and remember the if statement. It has a logical test. That's its first parameter. And this logical test has to return true or false. And that's what this does, right? This OR function returns true or false. We just saw it, right? It returns true or false right here. All I'm taking is taking that true or false value and now putting it into an if statement so that if it's true, the value if true is going to be send email, and if it's false, the value of false is just going to be nothing, a blank cell. So if I hit enter, here I have a blank cell. And if I do the autofill, if I double click the lower right corner, now I get something cool. I get a column that really easily shows me who do I need to send an email to. Well, I need to send an email to this person because they live in South Dakota. And I need to send an email to this person. Because their name is Dominic. They would live in South Dakota. This person lives in South Dakota too. Let's find someone. Let's find this guy. What is this guy? So this guy works for Microsoft. You can see right here he works for Microsoft. I want to find someone whose name is David. Let me find someone who works at David so you can see that. I'll just do no, I don't want to do that. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. So this person here, this David Trevino, he should be sent an email. And let's scroll over. So, okay. Oops. We have a problem here. In my formula, I was stupid and I thought first name, last name were broken out into individual columns, but they're not. So this creates a problem, and I can't just say A43 is equal to David because they have a first name and last name, and I can't just say it equals to Armando because you need to have a first name and last name here. So let me change this a little bit. I'll write, or if the person's name is David Trevino. And there's ways around that. In future videos, I'll show you how you can extract just the first name out of this cell, and you can include that in this statement here, in this formula. But right now, we'll get to that point down the road. So right now we won't cover that. But there are ways to, let's say you don't have the first name and last name in two different columns, you can still get it out, and I'll show you that in future videos. But for the time being, let's just change our formula like that. So now this evaluates to send email. Why does it evaluate to send email? Well, he works at Lavasoft, and he lives in Michigan. So he doesn't live in South Dakota. He doesn't work for Microsoft. But his name is David Trevino. So that means we got to send him an email. So that's our new formula. Let me drag it up. So I'm going to go down here to the lower right and just drag it all the way up. And then I'll autofill it down so that it covers everything. And now we see again that what we have here is a column now that says, okay, these people we need to send an email to. And how do we do that? Well, we had some criteria that they had to live in South Dakota, or they had to work for Microsoft, or their name was David Trevino. So that is the OR function. It's pretty simple. Main thing to remember, it returns true or false. Same as the AND function. It returns true or false. And in the real world, what you're really going to do is use that true or false value that you get from those AND and OR functions, and you're going to put them in if statements like this. So at your job, it's real useful to have this at your disposal because you can real easy identify a lot of different criteria. You could use AND functions or OR functions, and you could do a lot of things. And that's all I wanted to show for this video. If you want to download this workbook, you can go to excelvbasequel.com, and you could look at the if function, AND function, OR function. I'm basically going to save the workbook and upload it to excelvbasequel.com, where you can download it. You don't need to download it. You could just watch the videos, and you could go from there. So go to the site to watch all the videos. You could become an expert at Excel or VBA, and put your email in here, and you'll be emailed when free videos go up. Until next video, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.